Several years ago, a man was murdered in the city I was working in, and parts of his body were turning up in various locations. I think his hand and foot had already been found. That was about a week ago. I'm an architectural designer, and I was surveying an abandoned chapel that was scheduled to be renovated into condos. It was apparent that homeless people had been squatting in the chapel, but I wasn't sure how recently they had been there. When I went into the basement, though, it was clear that someone either had been there or had just left based on the smell. There were no lights due to the power being cut, and I didn't stick around long enough to see if anyone was currently occupying the space. 2 days later, someone reported that they had found the torso and the head of the murdered man inside the building attached to the chapel. I had been too freaked out by the smell inside the basement to continue on to the attached building, but I'm also certain that I would have been the one to find the body. I do urban exploring quite frequently, and nothing ever makes us leave instantly apart from dodgy floors or squatters. However, 5 years ago, me and a few friends explored the Balearic farmhouse with outboundings which had evidently been there for a few decades based on the state they were in. After having a look around the place and finding nothing but empty buildings, we had a look inside what appeared to be an old stable. Inside was literally hundreds of empty tin cans of cat food. Some nooses were tied to the beam, and a fairly new pair of scissors with brownish crust covering the blades. The smell was putrid. We ventured further into the building and noticed that the floor were cats' tails and a few cats' paws which had been dismembered and left on the floor. We swiftly exited, and on our way out, a pickup truck pulled up into the side of the farm. Bear in mind that it was surrounded by woods and fields and no track leading into it. 3 men stood in the bed of the truck. Needless to say, we got out of there as quick as we could and haven't seen or heard anything since about it. The farmhouse went on the market and sold earlier this year, so it would be interesting to see who previously owned it. A couple years ago, my buddy and I were bored one afternoon and decided to explore an abandoned house I had spotted earlier that week when I was out for a drive. We live in a town that was mostly suburbs, but if you drive 5 minutes north, it's all country roads and farmland. The abandoned house I spotted was in the middle of a field. There wasn't a paved road or gravel driveway that led up to it, so we parked as close as we could to the side of the road and walked through the tall grass to reach it. The house looked pretty old, most likely built in the early 1900s. There were plants engulfing the entire home, and part of the roof was missing from what looked like to be fire damage. It had obviously been abandoned for some time. My friend told me he was going to hang back when he came close to the house. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and he said that he was getting bad vibes. I decided to keep going. When I reached the house, I looked through the windows and saw lots of weather damage and signs of neglect. The door, however, was locked. I walked around the perimeter of the house and found the cellar door unlocked. I entered and slowly started walking down an old wooden staircase. I got halfway down and squinted, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. The only light source was the sunlight coming from the open cellar door. It was full of old belongings, furniture, and junk. Then in the far right corner, I saw what looked like a figure, standing in the darkness facing me. My stomach sank. It was a tall person just standing there straight, with their arms in their side. I couldn't make out what they were wearing or any facial features. I stood there for a few seconds staring back at them in shock. I thought it had to be my mind playing tricks on me. I squinted harder trying to make out if what I was seeing was actually a tall figure, when suddenly it moved slightly and made a deep grounding sound. I panicked and ran up the stairs as fast as I could. When my friend saw the look on my face when I exited the basement, he started running towards the car. He said it looked like I had just seen a ghost. When we drove away, I kept looking back to see if there was anything that followed us, but there was nothing there.